Well, if it isn't another shiny gadget making its grand entrance like it's the second coming of sliced bread, today, we're diving into the world of a 128GB AMD Ryzen AI mini PC because, who doesn't need a tiny box that promises to do everything except wash your socks? I can already hear the tech enthusiasts drooling over this thing like it's a gourmet meal in my bog. But let's be real, folks. Is it really necessary to cram all that power into a pint-sized package, or is it just another overpriced paperweight waiting to collect dust on your desk? Stick around as I dissect this so-called marvel of modern technology, if it doesn't put me to sleep first. And hey, while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, or I might just hop back into my swamp and never come out. Now, let's see if this little contraption is worth the hype, or if it stinks worse than my bog after a rainstorm.
This mini PC has a 12-core AMD Ryzen AI processor with an AI NPU and a faster GPU. You can expand the memory in this one up to 128 gigabytes, but 2 SSDs have dual networking.
Expanding memory up to 128B, wow, how generous. It's like they're throwing a memory party and inviting all the data to crash. But let's be honest, who needs that much memory unless you're hoarding cat videos or planning to launch a small satellite? And dual networking? Sounds fancy, but I can't help but wonder if it's just a way to distract us from the fact that it's still a mini PC. I mean, come on. It's not like it's going to solve all your problems, unless your problem is a lack of clutter on your desk.
And all kinds to put in here. Let's get to the hardware because there's a lot going on here.
Finally, we're getting to the hardware. It's about time we stopped with the fluff and got to the meat of the matter. I mean, if I wanted to hear about membership perks, I'd just hop on a sales call. Let's see if this mini PC can actually deliver on all that hype or if it's just another shiny box with a lot of hot air inside.
There's a lot going on here. Okay, so looking at the front of the system, you're going to see that we have a power switch, which lights up. Then we also have our audio combo jack. We also get 2 USB Type-A ports. These are USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, so they're 5 gigabit per second ports, not necessarily the fastest, but on the other hand, it's nice to just have a bunch of Type-A ports. The next one, however, is the USB 4 Type-C port, or at least one of them. And of course, with USB 4 Type-C, you can go put a ton of different peripherals on there and get high-speed networking or all kinds of things that you just didn't have access to before. Well, at least in a mini PC like this. On one side of the system, it's some plastic. On the other side of the system, it's some plastic with a vent. In the rear, we have a whole bunch of connectivity, but let me get to one of the funniest little features by far, which is that they make this system so cool. I mean,
now we're talking a funny little feature about cooling. That's the kind of absurdity I can get behind. I mean, if a mini PC can keep its cool while packing all that power, it might just be worth its weight in plastic. Let's see what kind of quirky innovation they've come up with. Hopefully, it's not just a fan that sounds like a toad croaking in the night.
So cool. I mean, there's like RGB lighting that goes all around it. They go through all that to make it.
RGB lighting is seriously? It's like they thought, let's throw some colorful lights on this thing and call it a day. I guess if you can't dazzle them with performance, you might as well blind them with flashy lights. It's a mini PC, not a disco ball. But hey, if it keeps the heat down while looking like a party, maybe it's not all bad. Just don't expect me to dance around it.
To make it look nice, and then they put the little green quality control sticker on the outside. Like, at least stick that on the bottom if you're going to stick it on the outside of the case, but for some reason they decided, yep, we just want to have it there in the corner and make it not look good. Getting to the rear I/O, we have our DC input. It says 19 volts directly on it, so it's at least easy to know if you need a replacement adapter, what kind you need. You also have another audio jack. Next to that, we have another USB Type-C port, which is a USB 4 port, so we get another 40 gigabit per second port with all of the goodness that comes with USB 4. Of course, next to that, we get an HDMI 2.1 display output, and then we get a display port, and then we get 2.5 gig Ethernet ports. Now, these are Realtek Ethernet ports, so not necessarily the most exciting from that standpoint. Now, the last 2 ports are USB Type-A ports. These are USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, so 5 gigabit per second ports. And the other feature on the back is you get a nice heatsink. We'll show you inside how this all works, but it is just kind of interesting, their airflow design, and we'll show you that when we get to our internal overview. On the bottom of the unit, we get some rubber feet and some vents. On the top of the unit, though, this is where things get really interesting. So this little bar right here.
Now we're getting to the juicy part. Something interesting about the top of the unit. Finally, some intrigue. I hope it's not just a fancy sticker or another RGB light. If they's got something clever up their sleeve, I'm all ears. Let's see what this little bar has to offer. Hopefully, it's not just a glorified handle for carrying it around like a lungbox.
right here is actually a light up RGB bar. It really doesn't add much in terms of functionality.
A light up RGB bar that adds zero functionality, classic. It's like they thought, let's slap on some lights to distract from the fact that this is just another mini PC. I guess if you can't impress with performance, you might as well dazzle with lights. It's all about the show, isn't it? Just don't expect me to be impressed by a glorified nightlight.
But it does look cool, and it does differentiate this versus a lot of other mini PCs that don't have it. When I first saw it, I was like, okay, that's kind of gimmicky. I don't really like it.
Finally, someone who gets it. It's gimmicky, and it's nice to hear that even the presenter isn't buying into the hype. Just because it looks flashy doesn't mean it's worth anything. I mean, if I wanted gimmicks, I'd just watch a magic show. Let's see if this thing can actually deliver on performance instead of just being a pretty face.
Really like it, but then it's kind of grown on me actually. And the funny thing is, in my workstation, I don't want to see RGB, but at the same time, I don't know why, this just was kind of cool. Now, to get inside the system, we're going to start with one of the more perplexing perplexities, so let's get to that. Okay, so let's start our internal overview with how we get to the components that we want to service. And you might think that this is a normal PC or mini PC where a lot of them you have to unscrew 4 things and get inside. It's not, well, in some ways. So first off, you have this little latch back here on the back of the chassis. Now this latch has a screw that's meant to make sure that the latch doesn't come undone, I guess. Now we have managed to not lose it, but it is a tiny little screw. So once you remove that screw, you're probably looking at this and you're like, oh my gosh, did they make a toolless cover? And the answer is, well, other than that screw, yeah, they did, except, well, maybe not so much. And then once you get inside, you're left with this. Now, you have a fan, which I actually really like the idea.
Finally, we're getting to the inside. A fan? Now we're talking. It's nice to see they're at least trying to keep things cool in there. But let's be real. If the fan is the highlight of the internal design, we might have a problem. I hope there's more to see than just a tiny fan and a bunch of empty space. Let's hope this mini PC isn't all show and no go.
I actually really like the idea of having a fan to cool your memory and storage, but at the same time, now you have 4 screws to be able to open this up. And once you get those 4 screws out, you can now access all of your memory and storage. When I talk about perplexing perplexities, they actually went through the engineering effort to make a top that is toolless, but then you have to really use tools to do it.
Now that's a classic case of mixed signals. They went through all the trouble to make a toolless design, only to throw in a bunch of screws anyway. It's like saying, hey, we made this easy to open, but just kidding, grab your toolbox. Talk about a perplexing design choice. If I wanted to wrestle with screws, I'd just fix my old swamp shed.
Do anything once you open it. I just don't get it. Now, once you're inside, you can see that we have 2 NVMe storage slots as well as 2 DDR5 SODIMM slots. The other feature that's here is that
now we're talking 2 Knife storage slots and 2 DriveHeavy's ODIMM slots. That's more like it. Finally, some real potential for upgrades. It's nice to see they're not skimping on the essentials, but let's hope the rest of the design doesn't make accessing those slots a nightmare. If they can pull this off without making me feel like I'm performing surgery, I might just give them a grudging nod of approval.
Feature that's here is that we get a Wi-Fi 6 card, but I kind of wish that this was like a kind of just a higher end card.
A Wi-Fi 6 card? Well, that's a nice touch, but wishing for a higher end option? That's a fair point. It's like they're almost there but just didn't quite hit the mark. If you're going to pack all this tech into a mini PC, why not go all out? It's like baking a cake and forgetting the frosting. What's the point? Let's see if they can redeem themselves with the rest of the features.
A higher end card. We got this system, I would say, I am a little bit not super confident in. Now, the first thing,
a little lack of confidence in the system. That's not exactly a glowing endorsement. It's always concerning when the reviewer isn't fully sold on the components. If they're hesitant, it makes me wonder what's lurking beneath the surface. Let's see what specific issues they have. Hopefully, it's not a deal breaker.
now, the first thing you're gonna notice is we have some kind of Rayson or some kind of random SSD in here that is from a brand I've never heard of and never used before. And we use a lot of SSDs. So that is just kind of one thing that, I don't know if I would really pay a lot of money for a 1 terabyte drive from a vendor and an SSD that I don't really know that well. Now, the RAM was another one that was just kind of, I don't know. So this is what the RAM sticks, the 2 16 gigabyte sticks look like that came in the system. The actual chips are marked with Hoge or Hoge, H-O-G-E. I don't know how they say it, but that's the manufacturer, and they make some like RAM and also SSDs and stuff, and they use all kinds of random components, but you don't really see that many RAM packages with their branding on it. So that was a little bit weird, frankly. Okay, so like here's my thing. This overall is a pretty good package, but like I just kind of get nervous when I see no name or.
Nervous about no-name components? That's a valid concern. It's like buying a mystery box. Sure, it could be great, but it could also be a total flop. When you're investing in tech, you want some assurance that the parts are reliable. If the package looks good but the internals are questionable, it raises a red flag. Let's hope they can back up the performance with some solid components.
Or brand name components that I don't recognize, especially when you have folks like Minis Forum and B-Link and stuff like using fairly well-known brand components a lot of times. Like that just kind of feels like a big delta between the two. So personally, I mean, I would order the bare bones.
Ordering a bare bones system? Now that's a smart move. It gives you the flexibility to choose your own components, especially if you're wary of the no-name parts. It's like building your own sandwich instead of settling for whatever's in the mystery box. At least this way, you know what you're getting. Let's see if they can wrap this up with some solid recommendations.
The bare bones, and then I just don't know if I'd spend an extra 140, 150 bucks for no-name brand components. Processor is on the other side of the system, and in that processor, we have 4 P cores, 8 E cores, but they're really not P and E cores like Intel would say. These are AMD Zen 5 cores. So we have our 4 higher speed and also higher cache P cores, which are Zen 5 cores, and then we have 8 Zen 5 C cores, which are, really focused on running at a lower and more efficient power level, but also have less cache. The benefit, of course, is that you get the same instruction set on both sets of cores, and then you also get SMT on both. So it's not like Intel where like, in some generations, when you have some cores, they don't have SMT and other cores do on the same chip. So it's just a nice, I just think it's a little bit easier for folks to get their heads around. One other little thing that when Sam was doing the photos and B-roll for this, what you're going to notice is that there's this like little screw that's missing the screw head, and we had one screw.
A missing screw head? That's a bit concerning. It's like they couldn't be bothered to finish the job. If they can't even secure the casing properly, what does that say about the overall build quality? It's these little details that can make or break a product. Let's hope this isn't a sign of sloppiness in other areas.
One screw where the screw head just kind of popped off, and I don't really know why. With that, I think it's time to talk about performance. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the performance of the AMD Ryzen.
Finally, we're getting to the performance. This is where the rubber meets the road. All the specs and components are nice and all, but if it can't deliver in real-world usage, what's the point? Let's see if this AMD mini PC can actually back up all that hype with some solid performance metrics. I'm ready for the verdict.
Ryzen AI 9 370HX. I mean, holy crud, like that's a crazy name. But what I will say is that we have tested this before. We specifically tested this in the B-Link SER9, and this is a little bit of a different implementation. The reason it's different is frankly the fact that we don't have fixed memory. Instead, we use those DDR5 SODIMMs. Now, in most workloads, having the DDR5 5600 versus the fixed LPDDR memory, we are definitely, getting lower on average performance, which is not great, but I'm going to show you why maybe that's not so bad in a second.
Lower average performance? That's a bit of a letdown, but I'm intrigued to hear why it might not be as bad as it sounds. If they can justify it with some solid reasoning or unique features, I might just be willing to overlook it. Let's see what they've got up their sleeve.
Second, the next side though is really on the GPU side. The GPU side, for some reason we saw, well, not for.
Now we're diving into the GPU performance. If the GPU is delivering better results, that could be a saving grace for this mini PC. A solid GPU can make a world of difference, especially for tasks that require more graphical power. Let's see if it can redeem the overall performance and make this little box worth the investment.
We saw, well, not for some reason, but obviously because of the different memory configuration, we saw like 10% lower performance, which again, it's definitely something, it's pretty significant, but on the other hand, the difference between the AMD Radeon 890M versus the previous generation is a heck of a lot more than just that, 10% or so. So you're definitely still getting the benefit of the new and faster GPU, but on the other hand, you're not getting, the full performance benefit. benefit. Now, of course, I know a lot of folks are really excited for the 395 Plus, which will be coming out with the monster GPU, but those systems are probably going to be, twice what this thing costs. Now, there is a difference in what this can do versus the B-Link that's not really performance related, but it kind of also is. Now, of course, default in the system, we got 32 gigabytes of memory in those two 16 gig DIMMs of unknown origin, and that's not necessarily great. But what I wanted to see was, well, if we have memory that is just SODIMM memory, can we upgrade it? And the answer to that is, oh yeah. Because not only did we upgrade to two 32 gig modules.
Upgrading to 232 sticks, now that's a game changer. It's great to hear that you can boost the memory capacity. If this mini PC can handle that kind of upgrade, it opens up a lot of possibilities for users who need more power. Let's see how well it performs with the added memory.
Gig modules, giving us 64 gigs total. We also said, hey, let's just try those crucial 48 gig modules and see if we can get 96, and yes, we did. And then, well, things got a little bit more spicy.
Up to 96 speed, now we're cooking. That's impressive, and definitely adds some serious muscle to this mini PC. If it can handle that kind of memory, it's looking more like a powerhouse than just a compact box. Let's see what kind of performance boost that brings. This could change the game for users needing serious multitasking capabilities.
Spicy, because our 64 gigabyte modules arrived, and as you can see running behind me, we have this system running with 128 gigabytes of memory. Now you might ask, why do we care about a little system like
128 GB of memory in a mini PC? Now that's something to talk about. That's not just a little system anymore, that's a serious contender. It's impressive to see how far these compact machines can go. If it can handle that much memory efficiently, it opens up a world of possibilities for power users. Let's see how it performs under that kind of load.
System like this with 128 gigabytes of memory? There are 3 reasons. The first one is that you can just run more stuff. If you want to have a lot of Chrome browsers open, or Chrome tabs open, you can go do that with this 128 gigs. You just have more memory. You also can run things like, if you're running Photoshop or other things that just suck memory, this, you can just get more if you want to. Of course, you are paying for that extra memory, but it's an option at least where it wasn't on the B-Link. Now, the other one I think is really exciting is that as this gets a little bit older, or even just if you're doing desktop development or whatever, you might want to run virtual machines. You can run virtual machines in Hyper-V in even Windows 11 Pro, and you could run Linux and get virtual machines there too. And if you did that, having more memory is just kind of awesome, right? You always want more memory, and you can actually run some pretty beefy VMs once you have 128 gigabytes in a system like this. And so I think for a lot of folks, instead of having like a virtualization or dedicated virtualization host, one other option that you have is you can have a mini PC like this, use it as a desktop, and also use it as a virtualization host. So I think that's a great use for that 128 gigs. But of course, let's get to the one that everybody's probably excited about, and that's the fact that you can go run larger AI models locally, because
running larger AI models locally, now that's a compelling feature. With 128 GB of memory, this mini PC could actually handle some serious computational tasks. It's exciting to think about the possibilities for developers and enthusiasts who want to experiment with AI without needing a massive server setup. If it can deliver on that front, it might just carve out a niche for itself in the market.
Locally, because you're not bound by only 32 gigabytes. Remember, if you have 32 gigabytes of memory, there's gonna be some of that memory that's gonna be just devoted to like keeping Windows running or whatever OS you're running. And so having a lot more memory means that, the percentage of your total memory that is available for things like running a larger model is just higher. So one of the challenges with the Ryzen AI 9 370HX has really been just the fact that a lot of the designs that we've seen have had soldered memory and you haven't been able to upgrade it. This is the first design where you can. Now, of course, because we are using the DDR5 5600, we do lose some bandwidth, and that's important when we have AI applications, so it may not necessarily run large models as fast as you might want, but on the other hand, you can now do it in a tiny mini PC.
Running large models on a tiny mini PC, that's a fascinating trade-off. Sure, you might lose some bandwidth, but the fact that you can do it in such a compact form factor is impressive. It opens up a lot of possibilities for those who need portability without sacrificing too much power. If it can handle AI tasks effectively, it could be a game changer for developers on the go.
Like this and get 128 gigabytes. That's pretty darn awesome, and you can do it today. With that, let's get to the power consumption. Okay, so let's talk about the power consumption and noise here.
Finally, power consumption and noise. This is crucial information. If a mini PC can deliver solid performance without guzzling power or sounding like a jet engine, that's a win in my book. Let's see how it stacks up in terms of efficiency and noise levels. Those are key factors for anyone considering a compact setup.
And noise here. Now at idle on the Windows desktop, you're probably going to see power consumption somewhere in that 8 to 15 watt range. Now it's a little bit higher, a couple watts more than we've seen in some other mini PCs, but it's not necessarily atrocious. Now when we go and fire this thing up to 100% CPU load, what you'll see is that we get all the way up to 90 watts. And sometimes it'll say like 89 and go up to like 91, 92 watts. And that's interesting because one thing that we've seen with some mini PCs is that it'll hit that 90 watt range for a little bit, or that max range for a little bit, and then it'll drop down. This thing will just sit there and just run at right around that 90 watt range, right? So this thing is definitely holding high power consumption for a lot longer. It's not just doing the spike up and then drop down. So you get a lot of performance over.
Consistent high power consumption, that's noteworthy. If it can maintain that performance without the usual spike and drop behavior, it suggests solid stability under load. For users looking for sustained performance, that's a big plus. Let's see how this translates into real-world usage and whether it affects thermal performance as well.
You get a lot of performance over time. Now at idle, the noise is really good, frankly. It's not 100% silent, but we're talking about in a 34 dBA noise floor studio, we're seeing 36, 37 dBA. In that first minute or so, when you go and run 100% load, you're definitely going to hear it. I mean, it starts to get a little bit louder, but you're talking 38, 39 dBA, so it's still pretty darn good. And then when you let it run 100% for a while, that's when you're really going to start hearing it, and it'll start getting into that 40 to 42 dBA range. And we left it for a couple minutes just at 100%, and that's where it was. So if you are playing games or something where you're really using that GPU a lot, you're doing big AI things or whatever you're doing, that you're really loading the system up, that's when you're going to start to hear the fan. But I wouldn't say that's atrocious in any means. I actually thought that this thing was going to be really, really loud, but it turns out that design with that fan and heatsink is pretty good.
A well-designed fan and heatsink. Now that's a pleasant surprise. It's always a relief when a system manages to keep its cool without sounding like a jet engine. If they've nailed the balance between performance and noise, that's a big win for users who want a powerful yet quiet setup. Let's see if they can maintain that momentum as they wrap up the review.
Is pretty good. Some of the perplexing perplexities, like number one, that little green quality control sticker, which is
The infamous green quality control sticker. It's always amusing when a product has those little quirks that raise eyebrows. It's like they're saying, we promise it works, but here's a sticker to prove it. If that's one of the perplexities, I can only imagine what else they've got hiding in there. Let's see what other oddities they've uncovered.
is pretty mild. We also had things like the removable and toolless removable top that then has tools to get to anything that's useful once you're inside. But then there's other things like, well, let's talk about displays. Now, one thing that we found when we were turning the system on is that if we turned it on and we connected to the HDMI port, we got video output, which is what we would expect. But when we swapped it to the display port, we just couldn't get any display output.
No display output from the display port. That's a significant issue. If a system can't reliably output video through all its ports, it raises questions about its overall quality and usability. Users expect all ports to work seamlessly, especially in a mini PC designed for versatility. Let's hope they can address this problem, or at least provide some insight into why it's happening.
Output, specifically when we were setting the system up. And I don't really know why that is. It's just we had to use HDMI, and frankly, I would be a little bit annoyed if I bought a new PC.
I'd be annoyed too. If you're investing in a new PC, you expect all the ports to function properly. Relying solely on HDMI for setup is frustrating, especially when DisplayPort is supposed to be an option. It's a basic expectation that all outputs should work seamlessly. Let's hope this is just a quirk and not a sign of deeper issues with the system.
And I had a DisplayPort monitor, like a lot of folks do, and it didn't display any video when I was trying to set it up. I would think that this was broken if I didn't have the ability to go and switch to HDMI.
I think a lot of folks do, and if you do get one of these systems and you run into that, maybe this is a way to fix it for a lot of folks.
Also, the BIOS in this are pretty darn bare bones. There's not a lot of options there. So if you want to do something like you want to allocate 96 gigabytes of your 128 of memory to the GPU versus the CPU, well, you'd have to go in and install the Radeon software to be able to go and do that. You can't do it in BIOS, or at least we couldn't find it in the BIOS. And it's also not a system that I'm going to like hold my breath to get like really good BIOS updates and support for either, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. But like, on the other side, I said, well, why don't we just try this thing? And actually, this system, we have been using serving models with the 128 gig configuration, like since we set it up. Like this configuration is absolutely awesome. I think.
Finally, some positive feedback. It's great to hear that the 128B configuration is performing well for serving models. If it's living up to expectations, that's a solid endorsement for this mini PC. It sounds like it might just be worth the investment for those looking to run demanding applications. Let's see what else they have to say about its performance.
Things like, that framework desktop PC, and we have one of those hopefully coming with 120 gigs. That's going to be a big deal for, the segment. But at the same time, this is a lot less expensive, and you can get it today. You don't have to wait until Q3 or whenever they're going to.
A more affordable option available now, that's definitely appealing. If this mini PC can deliver solid performance at a lower price point compared to competitors, it could attract a lot of buyers. Plus, the urgency of being able to get it today adds to its appeal. Let's see if they can wrap up with some final thoughts on why this might be the right choice.
Q3 or whenever they're going to start shipping if you order new. And so if you are doing that AI development, you want to run 70B agents locally or other things, this is the kind of system that I think is really awesome.
Running 70B agents locally, now that's impressive. If this mini PC can handle such demanding tasks, it's definitely carving out a niche for itself in the AI development space. It sounds like a solid choice for those looking to push the boundaries of what a compact system can do. This could be a game changer for developers wanting power without the bulk.
Awesome, not necessarily one day.
Well, folks, we've just waded through the swamp of tech hype with this so-called marvel, the 128B AMD Ryzen AI Mini PC. My initial skepticism was met with a fair amount of gimmicks and a sprinkle of genuine intrigue, but let's be honest, it mostly felt like an overhyped piece of gear straight out of a magician's hat. Sure, it promises to do more than just sit there looking pretty, and I'll begrudgingly admit the potential for massive memory and some solid power usage is nice. Almost made me want to croak my approval, but much of what we saw was flashy RGB lights and an obsession with keeping cool that had less real substance than a lily pad in a drought. The hardware had its moments, especially with the dual memory slots and the option for upgrades, but they're throwing hollow promises like confetti. If the foundation of this PC is built on questionable components, what's the point when a mini PC's biggest highlight is a loud fan? It raises a few eyebrows, or in my case, a permanent scowl. In the end, it seems like the device might not be a total disaster. If you're an AI enthusiast on the move, this might just tickle your new gadget fancy. Just remember to inspect it fully before diving in. I won't be here to hold your hand when you discover that DisplayPort is more of a suggestion than a promise. Before you hop away to search for the latest tech toy, remember to hit that subscribe button and like this video, or I might just decide to bury myself in the muck and avoid this nonsense altogether. Until next time, may your gadgets serve you better than this mini PC serves its purpose. For now, I guess we'll just have to hope it doesn't end up being more flashes than substance, like a firefly in a bog, fading away far too quickly.